What's up, you muffin munching muggles? Welcome to Fiction and Reality. Today we'll be doing a brief story analysis of 007 First Light, which was recently released with all the luster and familiar chunks of spy cheese we've come to know and love. 007 First Light throws us into the secret world of MI6 and its network of lucrative spies, driven by chaos and exacerbated by James Bond's rebellion against order at almost every flip of the coin. Though rejecting authority carries its consequences and might rail against the preservation of order, disconformity must exist to challenge and verify true order within a society and the balance of powers of those who govern the world as it stands, or in James Bond's case, the crown. 007 First Light isn't just about fancy spy gadgets, but about the importance of questioning authority and never prioritizing technological governance over basic human emotional intelligence. In a world that adheres strictly to the high command of MI6 without question, James Bond in 007 First Light makes it imperative from the beginning that he is not MI6, while others rush to characterize him as impulsive, defiant, and reckless. Especially since he will let his code of morality overshadow the mission, his flippant personality is needed to balance the scales of power of those who govern. The more you get exposed to it, the more you begin to realize that the world of 007 First Light is simply just a fluctuant shift in power between those who govern in the light, those who govern in the shadows of corruption, wearing a mask of virtue. While chaos itself can be suffocating at times, you need chaos present, which James Bond embodies perfectly, to constantly stress test the validity of the system, of the order that is self-proclaimed to be governing in the light, as well as dispelling the order that's governing in the shadows. James Bond brings forward the individuality needed to equalize the threat of passive compliance. In the secret intelligence officer recruitment process, there is an established and orderly roadmap for what constitutes a spy. Greenway absolutely abhorred the reckless way James progressed through the academy, stirring up trouble with the other recruits. However, if one looks past this, aside from the absolutely insane fistfight between Monroe and Bond during the recruitment training process, this was merely an extreme expression of Bond's individuality. The more exposed the spies are to James Bond during the recruitment process, the more their individuality sort of exudates, and thus their ability to question authority. And as we all know, the moment you begin to ask why, those who exercise authority narrowly focused on their objectives and oblivious to the collateral effects their actions will have, will diffusely paint a big red X on your back and conspire to make you the biggest threat the world has ever known. James Bond threatens the thoughtless uniformity that Greenway remains severely tethered to, as it is the only means of being a spy that he's ever known, thus forcing him to view James Bond as a threat to the program at large, when in fact 007's individuality is, I would argue, the greatest asset he brings to MI6. In 007 First Light, we're met with a lot of tense moments that in some instances come down to the wire, causing James Bond to engage in what we can say are extremely optional activities, and what some might say are chaotic activities, even when told to disengage. This rebellious spirit is needed to latch onto unstable forces that oversee society, as well as prioritize the sanctity of life over the mission at large. There was a mission in 007 First Light where the spies infiltrate the Grand Carpathian Hotel to apprehend Agent 009. And of course, Greenway, who was by far James Bond's biggest op, restricted Bond's role to being a stakeout lackey for the rest of the spies to cover the parking exit should the rogue 009 decide to escape through that route. James Bond, as is in his nature, abandons this role to become a more active part of the mission and chases instinct after catching a strange-looking bellhop. Greenway had recommended James not be entered into the spy program due to Bond's disillusion with blindly following orders, especially when they cross over the lines of morality. That being said, there are simply things you cannot see if you don't look beyond the blueprints. That is, where others might see the black and white, James sees the gray in between and decides to excavate it, expecting the unexpected, they say. This is the sole reason that Bond even tips Monroe off to the security chief going missing and the odd blonde-haired man traversing throughout the hotel changing costumes, and uncovers that the bomb that was planted underground was planted by the blonde man who was swapping disguises so quickly, and actually they were a set of twins working for Webb Industries in a plot to assassinate 009 and frame MI6 for the explosion. Without their reverence to authority, without choosing to cling to instinct, and without expecting the unexpected, a person forgoes looking at the forest for its trees and blinds themselves from interpreting the world through differing perspectives. 007 First Light illustrates the importance of challenging order through chaos and disconformity, establishing it as a prerequisite to verify that the established order is as fair and as balanced as the ones who govern it claim it is. As we all know, there are consequences to breaking established structures handed down by linear minds who are solely enamored with superficialities and maintaining their own status and standing reputation, something we know 007 is not privy to. If James never left this post, it's likely Monroe wouldn't have been drawn to the basement where he was ultimately put down and murdered by the Murtaugh twins, though he did prevent the other Bond from blowing up and completely leveling the ballroom, which might have left Greenway dead and Cressida killed rather than crippled. There are two sides of the coin when it comes to uprooting order: one that maintains positive reinforcement through internal means, such as preserving one's spectrum of morality and doing what they think is right, which primarily drives forward James Bond's efforts throughout his missions, as well as his defiance, but also the consequences that come from said choice, which may overlook the safety of others standing in the periphery. Not that it means the choice to do whatever one deems is right, even if it encompasses defiance, is worthless, but it does harbor a burden for sure. I mean, Monroe's not the only thing that should be exploding right here, am I right? If you guys are enjoying the video, go ahead and blow up that like button for me and subscribe if you want to see more analysis of your favorite games, shows, and other internet videos. In 007 First Light, it's evident that Greenway and Bond aren't exactly two peas in a pod. They represent two opposing ideologies when it comes to prioritizing the mission. James Bond, of course, prioritizing the mission's completion as long as the job gets done, which can result in a destructive aftermath in the wake of his actions. Then you have Greenway, a strict by-the-books operative MI6, who believes defying order is akin to defying Britain in the crown, and that orders from the high authority should never be questioned, and to do so is a dereliction of duty. One force that holds up authority blindly, and the other who follows it well within its merit, but always ask why. That's to say, Greenway blindly following orders without questioning them, even when objective anomalies are right before his eyes, whereas James Bond will break protocol as long as the ends justify the means of uncovering the truth. And in the case of the Carpathian Hotel bombing, bringing justice to the fellow spies that fell at the hands of what we eventually learned to be a Webb Industries ploy to gut the 00 program and cover up the intel leaks that expose their corrupt failures regarding THEIA, an AI database that falsely predicted rogue agents were a part of a mole ring. In the Kingdom of Aleph, Bond fights through a trail of Balma's mercenaries in order to assassinate 009, who upon arrival both he and Greenway discovered to have already been killed, yet before his death somehow left a trail of evidence behind in a shipyard for them to follow. Interestingly enough, Greenway was against going to the shipwreck as the mission had already been completed, and he had no desire to look past this. However, it's James Bond's passion for uncovering the truth, even if it means cutting through the red tape that pushes for the investigation into the leads left behind by 009, leading them to uncover the Webb Industries was ultimately behind framing 009 and other spies due to a bug in their computer THEIA, which incorrectly labeled 009 other agents as a part of a mole ring conspiring against MI6. Greenway was hired to eliminate these agents but failed to kill 009, which led to the shutdown of the 00 program and a failure of Operation Nightfall. In other words, Greenway uncovers this due to him breaching protocol, that there was no mole ring and that the agents he killed were killed for absolutely no reason but to cover up THEIA's mistakes and give validity to the Webb Industries supercomputer. 007 First Light illustrates that structure is vital in maintaining order, but that there is a difference between blindly adhering to order and questioning order when objective anomalies are placed before your eyes. It's a question of how far one is willing to overlook something to numb out their own insecurities or failures. James Bond is diametrically opposed to simply following orders when empirical evidence surfaces contradicting the branch's narrative, or his own hard lines of morality are crossed or threatened. The game's story suggests that when one is subjugating another and calling them out for not blindly adhering to authority, there must be an opposing force present to question the validity of that order, or else risk becoming a cog who simply acts at the whisper of a word and possibly compromising both the internal code of ethics for themselves and the governing structure placing the maladaptive label on them, and unknowingly so maybe. In 007 First Light, opposed to Greenway's usually strict adherence to protocol, procedure, and guidelines, upon uncovering that he was weaponized to eliminate 009 and other fellow agents who had wrongly been mislabeled as part of a mole ring by THEIA, his posture absolutely collapses. It begs the question, when does orderly become disorderly? The damning mistake 007 First Light highlights is assigning blind virtue to those who govern you. The assumption is they wear the same tag, so they must have the same mission in mind. But the truth is that people are flawed and will use people for their own merits if need be. This is why Greenway and James Bond secretly pursue Damien and Sir Nicholas Webb to prevent them from selling off THEIA or Hyperion into the hands of worldwide terrorist organizations. As we're shown consistently throughout First Light, there are consequences for breaking protocol, but there are also consequences for blindly following it without adhering to one's own moral compass or objective contradictions. This sequence ultimately leads to Greenway holding off the enemies for James while he pursues Damien to put an end to his madness and his plans to utilize the AI to overthrow Britain's government and a crippling need to control the population at large. Greenway ultimately sacrifices his life and engages in a mission of vigilante justice, caving into Bond's framework of never losing your internal compass to the machine, which was a very transformative sequence for his character given his by-the-books adherence to authority. Hey, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Dubby Energy, for sponsoring this video. If you're tired of getting mogged in your game because you're feeling a little sleepy, feeling a little sleepy, you pussy, well, wake up! Dubby specializes in focused energy drinks that shock you awake, and unlike other gamer juice, is free from fillers, artificial colors, dyes, and other ingredients that make you crash. They've got a huge catalog of exquisite flavors to choose from, and if you're an anime fan, they've even got official license collabs with some of your favorite heavy hitters. And if you're more heavy on the collector side of things, well, Dubby's got you with a huge catalog of collector cups with your favorite characters on them. So what's the holdup? Get your hot waifu anime cup, wake the hell up, and check them out at dubby.gg, linked in the description below, and use promo code FICTION for 10% off your order, and let them know who sent you. 007 First Light is more than a story about spies with cool gadgets. There's something to be said about one's ability to preserve their own autonomy, such as James Bond does, while following orders within the bounds that his own morals allow him to do so. He values objectivities and chasing contradictions over conveniently closing the file and numbing the questions away like Greenwood did, which internally eroded him over the course of the years until Bond appeared in the resurgence of the 00 program. This game makes it imperative that basic human intelligence should never be ignored or forgone for technological governance, which in this case was carried onward by Webb Industries THEIA and Hyperion branches of advanced artificial intelligence. Sir Nicholas Webb covered up the faults of his THEIA artificial intelligence, and instead of correcting it, sent his son and other private contractors out on excursions to reinforce the reality it projected. If you think long and hard about it, 007 First Light is a battle between man and machine, but not just solely artificial intelligence, but the machine of order itself. Governance. Power often demands that it should blindly be met with a virtuous spirit. Simply assigning virtue and likeness in this capacity by way of association means one should blindly accept directives because they've been governed by that entity for no other reason than the fact that they supersede them in rank. This is the case with Greenway blindly assuming THEIA was right about Operation Nightfall before Bond pursued merits outside of the mission and discovered the Mo ring itself was a faulty error projected by the AI, which resulted in the 00 agents being killed, 009 being framed, and the 00 program ultimately being sidelined in the past. But Webb wasn't able to do this because he was a mastermind necessarily. It's because nobody questioned the machine, not even MI6, the intelligence agency drawing its projections from it, which led to the initiation of Operation Nightfall, a hunt for multiple 00 agents who were falsely accused of conspiring in a Mo ring, but in reality being massacred for absolutely no reason, with the exception of those who uncovered Webb's corruption, who were then hunted to be silenced. 007 First Light illustrates that questioning authority and asking why is the most vital parameter in walling off the capacity for chaos and corruption to wreak havoc within an established order. When James Bond questioned the machine, unraveled the corruption, and remained true to his internal compass, everything else collapsed on its own. Even the Webb's other plans to use Hyperion to overthrow the country, to control the people of Britain and internationally by selling off the advanced AI to achieve worldwide surveillance. It's not just the machine of blindly adhering to a mechanical artificial intelligence governing authority. It's the matter of questioning order at every level, and as James Bond shows us, opting to preserve your internal compass and chase the truth and facts over convenience and fear of subjugation for being non-compliant with an authority that lacks the reason and wherewithal to even answer why. Important announcement here. I just wanted everyone to know we've got a Discord server up for you to join, linked below. This is your new home for discussing gaming, movies, TV shows, anime, and anything internet culture related, really. Whether you're there to share your thoughts on the latest binge watch, dropping your hottest gaming or anime takes, recommending shows or videos, or just vibing with the fellow community members, we're really trying to build a sense of community, so it would be good to see some discussions popping off about this. Also, that's how I get to know you guys, so go join and say hi. I'm looking for moderators as well, so DM me on Discord if you're interested. We're going to be having a newsletter come out soon, and more info on that will be shared in the Discord as well. I expect for at some point to include a free course lessons if you want to learn how to analyze characters and stories yourself to create your own content. Let me know what you think about 007 First Light in the comments. Was the story disappointing to you or everything you could ask for? You can also follow my IG page at lvamp23 and other socials in the link below. If you want more analysis of your favorite fictional worlds or characters, go ahead and smash that like button below, turn on that notification bell, and subscribe for more. The direction of progress is forward, and it's only up from here. With that, remember, if ever you're lost in a forest of your words, strip your mind for fantasy and look to the window of the world, and there your mind will run free.